What's really important to realize is the majority of people don't have a personality that fits well to being like a startup founder. It's a really particular set of things that kind of drive you. And just like, I'll give you like a really good example of something that I do well, that a lot of people I know typically, and trust me, there's a lot of things that I do really poorly that make me bad at other things or other types of careers that I was not good in. But one of the things I'm really good at, and my fiance she articulated this to me really well. She goes, you are extremely adept at basically what she calls like plate spinning, being able to have 4 or 5 or 6 things going on, all of which are uncertain, ambiguous, high risk. And at any point, any of the plates could fall. And some of the plates like will fall, undoubtedly. But when a plate does fall, you're kind of unfazed and you just have this ability to keep all the other plates going. And you can kind of compartmentalize, right, between the plate spinning, and be able to really like maintain focus, like where you need it, when you need it, and keep that whole thing kind of going. A lot of people, and I've realized this with working with different types of people, a lot of people that would cause them like crippling anxiety to do that. If that is you, in terms of that situation makes you uncomfortable, you cannot be a startup founder. I don't think it's possible, but it's like, what does that mean? Does that mean you're not as good? No, absolutely not. We're all wired differently, right? Like that same person who, like, I'll give you an example. If you gave me, I was a really bad salesperson early on. I was awful. I hit quota at 0 of my sales jobs. At Talin, I've closed 10 times more business than I've ever closed in ever working a sales job. And the reason for that is those sales jobs were mainly comprised of, hey, here's the manual, right? We've written out the playbook for you. Rinse and repeat this on a daily basis. And I was so bad at that. I could not. Maybe it's the ADD. I don't know, but I just couldn't. I wasn't able to execute and perform at a high level when sort of given instructions. I needed kind of the ambiguity to kind of do it well. And the world would not function if there weren't people who could basically execute at a high level when being given a specific objective, or at least a specific set of instructions to kind of get there. That's really, really important. So it's knowing yourself is a big part of it. And it might make sense to invest the time to get to know yourself a little better before you make such a big decision, to your point.
Now it goes back to another question, Julian. Are founders born, or the skills that you have now that ended up being really helpful and beneficial to Talin, were they developed, right? So a lot of people, you can before like working, you could be really, really crappy in sales, but then after a string of sales jobs, you can end up just really building that tough skin, okay with rejection and failure, and end up being like really, really good at it. So do you think that good founders can develop those traits if they're lacking it, if they're extremely self-aware, or do you think a lot of it is just innate?
Yeah, I think a lot of the traits are developed. Absolutely. I just think they are developed pretty early in life. Like I'll give you a really good one. You got to kind of be a little bit out to lunch, I think, to be a founder. And what I mean by that is I think you have to have a little bit of delusional confidence. You know what I mean? Most people, you lay out the steps of like roughly what needs to happen for your startup to be successful. And most people look at that with a seed of doubt. As a founder, you kind of need to look at that and be like, yeah, I can do that. Like, which is probably, and statistically is 90% incorrect of the time. Yep. But it's only the people who are delusionally confident who find a way to actually get it done. Because if there's any kind of, and not that you're not going to have doubts along the journey, you wake up so many, and I'm sure you guys have had this too. You wake up some days being like, what the hell am I doing? That's part of it. But you got to have, that's a trait, that kind of delusional. I owe a lot of, it's my parents. I give them a ton of credit for giving me that trait, because I grew up in a house where you are kind of told, and I'm really thankful for this, right? You were kind of told you could do whatever you want. If you care enough about it and you work enough at it, it goes, you're in full control. I was never told you can't do something because you're not able to. And so, for better or worse, I was given this kind of, this pretty crazy amount of confidence, you know what I mean, growing up. But then it became for me a self-fulfilling prophecy. You start to apply that confidence, like you can do things as long as you're not, expecting for things to happen without putting work into it, obviously, right? That's where you have to balance that with a lot of hard work. And once you get in the real world, you get humbled real quick. So yeah, I think all those things can be developed. I just know for me, those core pieces happened to me like pretty young.